Before we begin, it is important to understand that the albums covered in this video explore some of the darkest, most unsettling corners of the human experience. Themes of death, despair, mental illness, trauma, and existential dread are woven into the music you're about to learn about. Some of these works are emotionally intense, disturbing, and confrontational, pushing the boundaries of what many would consider comfortable listening. This video is not for everyone. If you are sensitive to dark, disturbing content, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The intent here is not to glorify or sensationalize these themes, but to explore how music can reflect the complexities of the human condition, even when it ventures into uncomfortable territory. Proceed with caution as we descend the abyss.
Welcome back to the weird, depressing, and disturbing albums Iceberg. I'm Squishy, and today we're diving into Tier 4 Part 2. If Part 1 exposed us to chaos and experimentation, Part 2 takes us even deeper into realms of haunting minimalism, profound despair, and the art that challenges not just our ears, but our understanding of darkness itself. In this tier, the albums refuse to conform to anything familiar. They strip down structure, reject comfort, and confront themes of isolation, desolation, and personal demons head-on. Each album here doesn't just dip into the abyss, they carve it out and pull us inside. Get ready, because the next collection of music pushes limits, breaks down conventional sounds, and leaves us to face the uncomfortable truths that linger in their echoes. Let's begin. Our journey into Tier 4 Part 2 begins with Natural Snow Buildings' Daughter of Darkness, a sprawling, haunting piece of ambient music that defies conventional listening. Released in 2008, this album stretches over 6 hours, creating a sonic landscape that's as vast as it is unsettling. More than a collection of songs, it's an experience that asks you to surrender yourself to its atmosphere, to drift without purpose in a world that feels ancient, isolated, and deeply otherworldly. The album opens with a quiet, low drone, gradually layering in textures that feel both minimal and monumental, as if they're echoing from another plane. Natural Snow Buildings, a French duo with a reputation for crafting deeply atmospheric music, uses these hours to explore themes of darkness, ritual, and decay, weaving a soundscape that seems to bridge the space between reality and dream. Each track unfolds slowly, like watching a dark forest descend into shadow at dusk. There's a sense of something shifting, something pulling you deeper into a space where time no longer applies. As you listen, the sound becomes thicker, more hypnotic, with notes that hover at the edges of perception, hums of static, hints of reverberating feedback, and field recordings that feel like fragments of forgotten memories. Tracks like Tortured Spirit and Black Pastures echo with an ominous, almost cinematic quality, building an atmosphere that's foreboding, but oddly meditative. The music moves with the pace of smoke rising from embers, a slow, inevitable drift that feels like it's beckoning you into a shadowy realm. Daughter of Darkness wasn't recorded in a high-end studio. In fact, much of its haunting atmosphere comes from its intentionally lo-fi production. The album's raw, unpolished sound creates an experience that feels almost haunted, as though you're listening to echoes from another time or even another dimension. There's a feeling that each note is barely holding itself together, each drone teetering on the edge of disillusion. This choice to embrace imperfection amplifies the album's uneasy beauty, making it feel like an artifact rather than just music. Themes of mysticism and decay pervade the album. Natural Snow Buildings pulls us into a world that seems ritualistic, a realm where music becomes a slow, immersive trance. Each track becomes a chapter in a larger story, one where meaning is obscured and all that's left is the sheer experience of sound. It's a meditation on loss, a journey that feels both intimate and ungraspable, as though each track carries with it an ancient, almost mythical sorrow. Though not widely known, Daughter of Darkness has built a cult following in the dark ambient and drone communities. Fans are drawn to its depth, to the sheer commitment it demands from its listeners. To experience this album fully, you have to abandon any sense of time, surrendering to its hypnotic, almost ritualistic repetition. It's music that tests the boundaries of patience, but for those who let it wash over them, it offers a journey into something beyond music, a space where sound transforms into something almost spiritual. In the end, Daughter of Darkness is more than just an album. It's an invitation into the unknown. Natural Snow Buildings have created an immersive world here, one that asks for you to get lost in its depths and embrace a darkness that is as beautiful as it is haunting. For listeners brave enough to surrender themselves to its length and its mood, this album is a unique experience that lingers like a shadow, pulling you back even as it fades away. Our next descent into Tier 4 Part 2 brings us to This Heat's 1981 album Deceit, a piece of music forged in a time of paranoia and tension, a time when the specter of nuclear war loomed large. This album is a disturbing, chaotic masterpiece, one that refuses easy categorization. It's part post-punk, part avant-garde, but more than anything, Deceit is a relentless reflection of the anxiety and fear that marked the Cold War era. Right from the opening notes of Sleep, This Heat draws us into a world that feels unstable, ready to collapse. The track begins almost gently, a deceptively soft entry that quickly descends into dissonance and agitation. The music is restless, filled with angular guitar riffs, fragmented rhythms, and lyrics that sound more like warnings than verses. As the album progresses, you feel trapped in a landscape of distortion and dread, as if each track brings you closer to an inevitable disaster. Deceit isn't just an album about sound, it's a deeply political work that delves into themes of propaganda, authoritarianism, and existential crisis. Tracks like Paper Hats and SPQR don't hold back, with lyrics that directly confront the lies fed to the public by those in power. The music itself feels fractured, like the sounds of a system breaking under pressure. It's as if This Heat took the tension of the Cold War and translated it directly into sound, capturing the psychological toll of a world on the brink. Recorded in This Heat's self-made studio, fittingly named Cold Storage, an abandoned meat locker, the album's lo-fi raw production enhances its sense of confinement and unease. Each sound is carefully placed, from the dissonant guitar riffs to the pounding drums, building an atmosphere that feels claustrophobic and oppressive. The album doesn't provide any steady rhythm or clear melody for comfort. Instead, it assaults you with chaotic, jarring shifts that keep you on edge. Every moment feels tense, as though something is lurking just out of reach, waiting to shatter what little stability is left. This Heat was pushing the boundaries of music with Deceit, but they were also pushing the boundaries of how music could communicate fear and anger. In a time when punk was still finding its voice, This Heat was already reaching deeper, using experimental techniques to express disillusionment with authority and society. The distorted vocals and harsh rhythms create an almost hypnotic sense of panic, like a warning siren that never stops, a reminder that peace is always fragile, and safety is an illusion. While Deceit wasn't widely appreciated at its release, it has become a cult classic, celebrated by fans of experimental music and critics alike. Its influence can be felt in countless bands who've tried to capture the same raw energy and atmosphere of looming dread. This Heat dared to confront listeners with the darkest side of modern life, making Deceit a timeless work of political art. In the end, Deceit is more than an album. It's a statement, a warning, and a call to remain vigilant. For those who dare to listen closely, it's a reminder of the fragility of peace and a journey into a world that feels alarmingly close to our own. Our journey through Tier 4 Part 2 brings us to Yellow Swans and their haunting 2010 release, Going Places. This album is a farewell of sorts, not just because it's the duo's final work before disbanding, but because it sounds like the end of something. A slow, reflective meditation on decay, loss, and isolation. At first glance, Going Places may seem like another experimental noise album, but it's much more than that. It's an experience that demands patience, drawing listeners into a world that feels fragile, almost as if it's slipping away with every note. The album opens with Foiled, a track built on a foundation of static and ghostly drones. There's a softness here, a kind of distant hum that feels comforting until you realize it's leading you further into desolation. Yellow Swans uses layers of feedback, static, and shimmering distortion to create a soundscape that feels vast yet incredibly intimate. Tracks like Opt Out and Limited Space evoke a sense of stillness, but it's the kind of stillness that comes from things left unsaid and moments left unresolved. It's like wandering through the remains of a memory where everything familiar has begun to dissolve. Going Places is drenched in melancholy, each track a slow descent into deeper isolation. The album's sounds are like echoes, fragments that seem to drift in and out, just beyond your grasp. As you listen, you feel the music wrapping around you, but it never fully embraces you. There's always a sense of distance, as if the sounds themselves are fading, disappearing even as you try to hold on to them. It's meditation on endings, on the things that slip through our fingers and the spaces left behind. Recorded with a lo-fi approach, Going Places captures an organic, almost haunting atmosphere. The rawness of the sound isn't accidental. It enhances the album's feeling of impertinence. The duo intentionally let imperfections remain, embracing the grainy textures and fractured notes that give the music a sense of fragility. It's as if each track is being held together by thin threads, ready to unravel at any moment. This isn't music crafted for clarity or precision. It's music made to feel like it's being lost to time. Though not widely known outside experimental circles, Going Places has gained a cult following among those drawn to its meditative qualities. It's a work that resonates with fans of ambient and drone music who seek something beyond passive listening. This album is immersive, yes, but it's also introspective, asking listeners to confront feelings of abandonment, finality, and the beauty in things that fade. In the end, Going Places isn't just an album, it's an experience of being suspended in a world that feels just out of reach, like a memory you can't quite hold on to. Yellow Swans created more than music here. They crafted a space for reflection, for confronting the transient nature of everything around us. For those willing to lose themselves in its depths, Going Places offers a haunting journey through the echoes of things that can't last. Our descent into Tier 4 Part 2 leads us to Chelsea Wolfe's Apokalypsis, released in 2011. This album is like staring into a mirror that only reflects shadows, a blend of doom folk, goth rock, and dark atmospheres that feel like a journey through haunted landscapes of the soul. Apokalypsis isn't an album that simply plays in the background. It demands your attention, pulling you into its world of ritualistic intensity and somber beauty. The album begins with Primal/Carnal, a track that opens with what sounds like distant, distorted vocals, a ghostly welcome that immediately signals you're entering a world unlike any other. Wolfe's vocals drift in and out, ethereal yet commanding, surrounded by layers of distorted guitars and reverberating bass. It's haunting, hypnotic, and deeply unsettling, setting the tone for an album that continuously oscillates between beauty and terror. Tracks like Myrrh and Demons are woven with heavy riffs and Wolfe's haunting vocals, creating an atmosphere that feels ritualistic, almost as if each song is part of a dark incantation. Apokalypsis takes its name from the Greek word for revelation or unveiling, and thematically, it feels like an unveiling of shadows, an exploration of things that lurk beneath the surface. There's a sense throughout the album that Wolfe is confronting her own demons, bringing to light fears and desires that often remain buried. Her lyrics are cryptic, laced with imagery that's both alluring and dangerous, hinting at themes of apocalypse, inner conflict, and primal urges. This is an album about facing the darkness within oneself, acknowledging it, and, in some ways, embracing it. Recorded in a secluded cabin with minimal equipment, Apokalypsis carries a raw, unpolished edge that enhances its mystique. Wolfe deliberately leaned into analog techniques, giving the sound a lo-fi quality that feels intimate yet unsettling, as if you're listening to something secret, something not meant to be shared openly. Her vocals are often distorted or layered with effects, adding an almost supernatural quality to her voice. It's as if she's singing from another realm, her voice a haunting presence that lingers in each track. Since its release, Apokalypsis has earned Chelsea Wolfe a dedicated following. Her willingness to explore themes of darkness and vulnerability set her apart, making her a unique figure in the realms of dark and alternative music. This album has influenced a new wave of artists who blend genres to create music that feels both deeply personal and universally haunting. Apokalypsis paved the way for gothic and doom-infused sounds to gain a broader audience, allowing fans to confront themes that are often left in shadows. In the end, Apokalypsis is not just an album, it's an invitation to explore the delicate line between beauty and horror. Wolfe created a soundscape that feels both familiar and alien, comforting yet terrifying, asking listeners to confront their own fears and desires. For those who choose to immerse themselves in its dark embrace, Apokalypsis offers a rare, unforgettable journey into the heart of the unknown. Our next descent into Tier 4 Part 2 continues with Jandek's 1978 debut album, Ready for the House, a work that exists on the fringes of music, somewhere between an album and an enigma. Ready for the House is often considered one of the most haunting and inaccessible entries in outsider music, an album that feels as though it was never meant to be heard. With nothing but a detuned guitar and Jandek's eerie, wavering voice, this album is raw, unfiltered isolation in its purest form. From the first track, Naked in the Afternoon, you're struck by the starkness of it all. There's no rhythm section, no embellishment, just dissonant, fractured guitar chords, and a voice that drifts somewhere between singing and speaking. The music feels suspended, like it's floating in some kind of emotional limbo. It's as if Jandek is exposing himself completely, stripping away all layers until what's left is raw, vulnerable, and deeply unsettling. Each note feels fragile, as if it's barely holding itself together, and that fragility is part of what makes this album so unique. Thematically, Ready for the House feels like an exploration of solitude and alienation. The lyrics are abstract, often fragmented, hinting at loss, introspection, and a sense of isolation that's palpable in every track. There's a desolation here that's almost hypnotic, pulling you into Jandek's world, one where the walls are closing in and the outside world feels miles away. It's music that doesn't try to reach out to you. Instead, it asks you to step into a place that's deeply personal and at times disturbingly intimate. What adds to the mystery of Ready for the House is the artist himself. For decades, Jandek kept his identity hidden, refusing interviews, live performances, or any public engagement. This anonymity created an aura around the album that made it feel even more isolated, as if the person behind the music was as unreachable as the music itself. Released on his own label, Corwood Industries, the album seemed like a message from someone existing on the fringes, communicating in a language few could understand. The production quality is rough, bordering on uncomfortable, but that lo-fi sound is essential to the album's haunting atmosphere. The detuned guitar and minimalist approach give the music a ghostly quality, like a distant transmission that barely makes it through. It feels almost voyeuristic, as if we're listening in on something that wasn't meant to be shared, a glimpse into a world that's both alluring and alienating. The lo-fi textures amplify this effect, adding a layer of distance between the listener and the music, as if it's something ephemeral, something that could disappear at any moment. Though largely unnoticed when it was first released, Ready for the House has gained a devoted cult following, especially among fans of outsider and experimental music. Its rawness and vulnerability have inspired artists who look to break away from conventional structure, redefining what music can be. Jandek's influence can be felt in the work of musicians who embrace imperfection, who see music as an extension of raw human emotion rather than mere entertainment. In the end, Ready for the House isn't just an album. It's an artifact of solitude, a work that pulls us into an isolated world, asking us to confront discomfort, distance, and the haunting beauty of being alone. For those willing to lose themselves in its unsettling embrace, Ready for the House offers an experience that is as unforgettable as it is unexplainable. Our descent into Tier 4 Part 2 takes a sharp turn into the bizarre with Blarf's 2019 album, Cease and Desist. Known for his outrageous absurdist humor, Blarf, a project by comedian and musician Eric Andre, blends noise, experimental hip-hop, and frenetic samples to create an experience that's as chaotic as it is thought-provoking. Cease and Desist is an assault on conventional music structure, a satirical, erratic exploration of media, consumer culture, and information overload, presented in a way that feels like it's testing your tolerance for absurdity. From the first track, Cease and Desist hurls listeners into a whirlwind of distorted samples, jarring sound bites, and wild, unpredictable tempo shifts. Tracks like Badass Bullshit, Benjamin Button's Butthole Assassin, and I Worship Satan showcase Blarf's irreverent approach, mixing snippets from pop culture with distorted beats and a mashup of genres that feel intentionally chaotic. It's a cacophony that seems to defy sense, constantly shifting without warning, creating a sense of overstimulation that mirrors the modern media landscape. At its core, Cease and Desist is a critique of consumerism, fame, and the modern obsession with content. Each track feels like a satire of our current digital age, a commentary on the absurdity of endless information and disposable media. The album's pacing is frenetic, mimicking the endless scroll of social media or the constant bombardment of news and advertising. Each track is its own chaotic scene, yet together they paint a surreal picture of modern life, one where attention spans are short and consumption is mindless. One of the defining elements of Cease and Desist is its heavy reliance on sampling, so much so that the album's title itself is a nod to the copyright challenges it faced. The samples are unfiltered, messy, and often legally questionable, adding a layer of unpredictability to the album. The lo-fi production and DIY ethos give it a raw, unpolished feel, amplifying the sense that this is less an album and more an auditory experiment or protest piece. Eric Andre's comedic background adds a touch of dark humor to the chaos, as though he's daring listeners to find coherence in the noise. Despite, or perhaps because of, its chaotic nature, Cease and Desist has resonated with fans of experimental music and noise. For some, it's a rallying cry against conventional music. For others, it's a work of satire that reflects the absurdity of our culture. The album's abrasive, almost confrontational structure pushes the listener to confront the overstimulation that defines modern life, making it a kind of twisted mirror for our media-obsessed society. Since its release, Cease and Desist has carved out a niche in experimental music for its audacity, its humor, and its commentary. It's an album that doesn't fit neatly into any category, instead celebrating the chaotic freedom of noise and satire. Blarf created more than music here. He created an experience that's half music, half critique, challenging listeners to survive the onslaught of sound and come out the other side with some insight, or at least a newfound appreciation for silence. In the end, Cease and Desist isn't just an album. It's a chaotic, satirical journey into the absurdity of our culture. It's an invitation to confront the noise, to question the role of media, and to embrace the surreal humor lurking beneath it all. For those willing to take the plunge, it's a jarring, unforgettable experience. Our next descent into Tier 4 Part 2 leads us to Current 93's I Have a Very Special Plan for This World, released in 2000. This isn't a typical album. It's more like an auditory descent into existential horror. Created by David Tibet and inspired by the works of horror writer Thomas Ligotti, this album blends dark ambient, spoken word, and surreal soundscapes to create something that feels both profound and terrifying. It's a reflection on fear, alienation, and the human psyche, an experience that's as chilling as it is mesmerizing. The album opens with Tibet's voice, distorted and layered, delivering a monologue that feels as though it's coming from somewhere beyond the veil. It's an unsettling effect. His words are haunting, almost hypnotic, drawing you into a story that feels fragmented, cryptic, yet intensely personal. The ambient backdrop is sparse but suffocating. Drones, faint industrial hums, and eerie sound loops weave together to create a sense of isolation, as though you're listening to a message transmitted from the depths of someone's darkest fears. Themes of madness, cosmic dread, and the emptiness of existence permeate the album. The title, I Have a Very Special Plan for This World, hints at something sinister, a suggestion of fate controlled by forces beyond comprehension. Tibet's voice drifts in and out, accompanied by ambient soundscapes that feel like they're alive, morphing with each spoken passage. The effect is deeply immersive, as if you're being pulled into a monologue that isn't meant to comfort, but to disturb, to remind you of humanity's smallness in the face of something vast and incomprehensible. The influence of Thomas Ligotti, a master of horror fiction focused on themes of existential dread and cosmic insignificance, is felt throughout the album. Tibet collaborated with Ligotti, drawing from his writing and worldview to create a work that feels like an audio adaptation of one of his stories. Ligotti's philosophy, which often questions the value of consciousness and the nature of reality, seeps into every corner of this album. It's not about scarring you with loud sounds or sudden shifts, but about immersing you in a space that feels as empty and bleak as Ligotti's fictional worlds. The production of I Have a Very Special Plan for This World is minimalist yet effective, amplifying the unsettling nature of Tibet's monologue. The choice to keep the background sound sparse with drones, reverberations, and faint industrial textures enhances the feeling of psychological isolation. It's a study in restraint, allowing the words and sparse instrumentation to interact in a way that's hauntingly effective, leaving just enough silence to amplify the dread. The album feels less like a musical work and more like an encounter with something eerie and profound. Since its release, I Have a Very Special Plan for This World has attracted a devoted following amongst fans of dark ambient, experimental music, and horror literature. It stands as a unique entry in Current 93's discography, celebrated for its unflinching exploration of darkness and existential despair. It has influenced other artists seeking to blend sound with themes of horror and philosophy, pushing the boundaries of what dark ambient music can communicate. In the end, I Have a Very Special Plan for This World is an album that doesn't provide answers. It poses questions that linger in the shadows, questions about purpose, consciousness, and the unseen forces that may shape our lives. It's an experience that, for those willing to let it in, offers a chilling confrontation with the void. And like the best horror, it leaves you wondering what truly lies beyond what we can see and understand. Let's take a moment to step back. The journey through Tier 4 Part 2 has led us deeper into the unknown, exposing us to sounds that defy convention, themes that unsettle, and atmospheres that seem to reach out from the darkness. Each album in this tier confronts us with a different shade of discomfort, a reminder that art isn't always meant to comfort or entertain. It can also disturb, provoke, and make us question the world around us. Take this brief moment to catch your breath, to let the echoes of what we've encountered settle. But remember, there's no true respite here. When we return, the descent continues. Our descent into Tier 4 Part 2 brings us to one of the most extreme and disturbing works in the realm of dark ambient and noise, Stalagg's Projekt Misanthropia, released in 2009. This isn't merely an album, it's an assault on the senses, a harrowing journey into the darkest corners of the human psyche. Stalaggh is known for pushing boundaries with their raw, unsettling soundscapes, and Projekt Misanthropia takes this to new extremes, exploring themes of misanthropy, violence, and mental anguish. The album opens with a cacophony of distorted, tortured screams and aggressive industrial noise, creating an atmosphere that's deeply unsettling from the first moment. There is no melody here, no conventional structure, just an unrelenting wall of sound that feels like the auditory embodiment of suffering. Each track on Projekt Misanthropia is a descent into chaos, with layers of harsh noise, distorted static, and screams that sound almost inhuman. It's a haunting reminder of how sound can convey fear and despair in ways that words often can't. The themes of Projekt Misanthropia revolve around misanthropy and the rejection of humanity itself. This isn't just music that critiques society, it's an album that reflects pure contempt and horror at the human condition. The agonized screams are said to have been recorded with individuals experiencing severe psychological trauma, adding a layer of authenticity to the work that many listeners find both captivating and deeply uncomfortable. It's a brutal portrayal of anguish, one that feels painfully real, as if the album itself is an expression of humanity's darkest moments. The production quality of Projekt Misanthropia is intentionally abrasive, emphasizing the raw, unfiltered nature of the project. There's a lo-fi, almost primal quality to the sound that enhances the sense of immediacy. The static, feedback, and dissonance create a dense, suffocating atmosphere, trapping the listener in a relentless barrage of noise. It's as if Stalaggh sought to strip away all the polish and perfection of conventional music, leaving only the raw, unadulterated expression of despair and anger. Controversy surrounds Projekt Misanthropia due to its themes and the methods allegedly used in its recordings. The extreme nature of the project has made it infamous in experimental and noise circles, with listeners divided between those who see it as a powerful exploration of human suffering and those who find it exploitative or even dangerous. The story behind the recordings, whether fact or myth, only adds to the album's mystique, making it a work that's surrounded by both fascination and revulsion. Since its release, Projekt Misanthropia has become a cult piece in extreme music, celebrated by those drawn to its unflinching darkness and condemned by others for the same reasons. It's an album that defies casual listening. Instead, it demands engagement with its raw intensity. Stalagg's willingness to explore themes of despair and misanthropy so directly has influenced other artists in the noise and dark ambient genres, pushing the boundaries of what sound can communicate. In the end, Projekt Misanthropia is not just an album, it's an ordeal, a work that confronts listeners with the depths of human suffering. It's a harrowing experience, one that leaves you questioning not only the music, but also the very nature of humanity itself. For those willing to endure its chaotic soundscape, it offers a glimpse into a darkness that few dare to confront. Our next descent into Tier 4 Part 2 leads us to Venetian Snares' 2001 album, Dal Dal Dal, a work that pushes the limits of breakcore, noise, and experimental electronic music. Dal 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 isn't just an album, it's an assault on the senses, a relentless, chaotic journey that feels almost unhinged, yet meticulously constructed. Known for his technical mastery and extreme approach to sound, Venetian Snares, the alias of Aaron Funk, crafted an album here that's both captivating and deeply disturbing. The album opens with Pygmalion, a track that immediately confronts you with rapid-fire beats and fractured melodies, setting the stage for an experience that's intense and jarring from start to finish. Venetian Snares uses frantic rhythms, dissonant tones, and abrasive samples to create a soundscape that feels like it's constantly teetering on the edge of chaos. Tracks like Pressure Torture and Befriend a Child Killer showcase Funk's mastery of rhythm and pacing, blending hyper-complex beats with layers of distorted samples. It's a barrage of sound that feels almost overwhelming, as though the music itself is trying to shake you to your core. Dal 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 carries an intense nihilistic energy, diving into themes of violence, psychological torment, and societal decay. The track titles alone hint at the dark narrative woven throughout, with disturbing themes that seem to reflect the brutal realities lurking beneath the surface of modern life. This isn't an album that gives you any room to relax or find comfort. Instead, it confronts you with harsh truths and unsettling sounds that feel as though they're scratching at the edge of your psyche. Funk's use of samples, often distorted and layered beyond recognition, adds to the feeling of disorientation, making the album feel like an unfiltered scream against a desensitized world. The production on Dal 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 is both aggressive and intricate, capturing Funk's ability to push breakcore to its extreme limits. The beats are meticulously crafted, often shifting tempo at a dizzying pace, forcing you to keep up with its relentless energy. The album uses unconventional sounds and textures that range from glitchy mechanical noises to haunting, distorted vocal samples. Each track feels like a twisted maze of sound, drawing you in deeper as the layers unfold, each one more settling than the last. Funk's attention to detail is apparent. Even within the chaos, there's a precision to the way each element collides, creating a controlled chaos that feels like a calculated breakdown. Since its release, Dal 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 has developed a cult following amongst fans of extreme electronic and experimental music. It's a cornerstone in the breakcore genre, influencing artists who seek to challenge the listener rather than confront them. The album's relentless energy and willingness to explore darker, controversial themes have made it a divisive work, celebrated for its boldness by some and avoided by others who find its intensity overwhelming. It's a work that doesn't just ask for your attention, it demands your resilience, testing the boundaries for what music can convey. In the end, Dal 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 is more than just an album. It's an experience of pure sensory overload, a dive into the chaotic, abrasive side of the human psyche. For those willing to endure its intensity, it offers a dark, unfiltered reflection of a world teetering on the edge. It's an unforgettable, if challenging, journey into the depths of sound and fury. Our next descent into Tier 4 Part 2 takes us into the heavy, industrial world of Dalek with their 2005 album Absence. Known for pushing the boundaries of hip-hop with elements of noise, shoegaze, and industrial music, Dalek created something raw and confrontational with Absence, capturing a feeling of urban decay and the weight of societal oppression. This album is gritty, abrasive, and filled with a sense of despair that resonates in each beat and lyric, confronting listeners with a world that feels fractured and hostile. The album opens with Distorted Prose, a track that sets a bleak tone right from the start. Deep, bass-heavy beats collide with layers of industrial noise and distorted samples, creating a soundscape that's both immersive and suffocating. MC Dalek's vocals emerge from this haze, his delivery intense and unrelenting, speaking truths that feel both personal and universally resonant. Tracks like Culture for Dollars and Asylum Permanent Underclass are infused with a sense of frustration and anger, as if each verse is a direct response to the injustices and hardships embedded in modern life. Absence is an album that tackles themes of societal decay, alienation, and the struggle for identity within a system that seems intent on erasing individuality. Dalek uses his lyrics as a weapon, addressing issues of poverty, racism, and inequality, turning each track into a rallying cry for those who feel overlooked and oppressed. There's a sense of despair here, but it's coupled with resilience, a refusal to be silenced despite the weight of the world bearing down. Absence feels like a snapshot of urban life at its harshest, where survival itself becomes an act of defiance. The production on Absence is dense and unforgiving, blending elements of hip-hop, noise, and shoegaze to create a sound that's layered and complex. Dalek uses distortion and feedback to give each track a raw edge, as if the music itself is fighting to be heard through a wall of static. This lo-fi, abrasive approach amplifies the album's themes, making the listener feel as though they're part of the struggle, forced to wade through the noise to find moments of clarity. The sound design is intentional, capturing the chaos and oppression that the lyrics confront, transforming Absence into more than just music. It's an environment, a place that feels bleak, yet charged with intensity. Though Absence didn't reach mainstream audiences, it became a cult favorite within the underground hip-hop and experimental music communities, resonating with those who are drawn to its unfiltered perspective and raw authenticity. The album's bold fusion of genres has influenced artists seeking to break the mold of conventional hip-hop, encouraging them to embrace the darker, more abrasive aspects of sound and storytelling. Dalek's willingness to confront real-world issues head-on has made Absence a landmark, paving the way for more boundary-pushing voices in hip-hop and beyond. In the end, Absence isn't just an album, it's a statement, a document of resistance and survival in a world that often feels overwhelming and indifferent. It's an invitation to confront the darkness rather than look away, to find strength within struggle. For those who dare to listen closely, Absence offers a journey into the underbelly of modern life, a reminder of the resilience that emerges from hardship and the power of a voice that refuses to be silenced. Our descent into Tier 4 Part 2 brings us to La Dispute's 2011 album, Wildlife, a raw narrative-driven exploration of trauma, grief, and the complexities of the human experience. Wildlife isn't just a collection of songs, it's a series of stories, each one peeling back layers of pain and vulnerability. With lyrics that read like confessions and instrumentation that swells and crashes, this album pulls listeners into a journey of self-reflection, exploring the dark spaces that we often try to avoid. The album begins with A Departure, setting a tone of introspection and unease as vocalist Jordan Dreyer opens with spoken word reflections that quickly erupt into passionate cries. His delivery shifts between gentle spoken word and explosive outbursts, mirroring the turbulent emotions woven into each story. Tracks like King Park and Edward Ben's 27 Times are particularly powerful, recounting moments of violence, loss, and searching for meaning in the aftermath. The way Dreyer tells these stories feels almost invasive, as though he's pulling you into someone else's tragedy, forcing you to feel the weight of their sorrow. At its core, Wildlife is an album about human suffering, about the questions we ask ourselves in the face of loss and the moments that break us down. The lyrics read like a journal, exposing raw and often painful memories that refuse to be forgotten. Dreyer doesn't offer answers or solutions. Instead, he lets each story unfold with brutal honesty, presenting life as it is, unfiltered and unresolved. This is an album for those grappling with their own shadows, with each track acting as a reminder of the shared struggles that connect us, even when they're uncomfortable to confront. The instrumentation on Wildlife mirrors the intensity of its lyrics, building tension through dynamic shifts that move from hauntingly quiet to aggressively loud. La Dispute uses sparse guitar riffs, intricate drum patterns, and a blend of post-hardcore and emo influences to create an atmosphere that feels both cathartic and oppressive. The music is as unpredictable as the emotions it portrays, with moments of calm shattered by outbursts of sound that feel almost uncontrollable. It's as if the band is channeling every ounce of anger, sorrow, and confusion into each note, creating a soundscape that feels alive with emotion. Since its release, Wildlife has garnered a devoted following, resonating with listeners who see their own experiences reflected in the stories it tells. La Dispute's ability to blend narrative depth with musical intensity has made this album a staple in the post-hardcore scene, influencing countless artists drawn into its raw vulnerability and emotional honesty. Wildlife isn't just an album, it's a conversation, one that invites listeners to explore their own pain and find solace in the fact that they're not alone. In the end, Wildlife stands as more than music. It's a series of windows into the lives of others, a reflection of the fragility of life and the resilience of the human spirit. For those willing to sit with its sorrow, Wildlife offers a space to grieve, to rage, and, ultimately, to heal, reminding us that even in our darkest moments, there is beauty in the act of sharing our stories. Our descent into Tier 4 Part 2 takes us to the bleak and oppressive soundscapes of Xasthur's 2006 release, Subliminal Genocide. This album isn't just a piece of music, it's a descent into one of the darkest expressions of depressive black metal. Xasthur, the one-man project of Scott Malefic Connor, created an album here that embodies despair, alienation, and the oppressive weight of isolation. Subliminal Genocide is less an album in the traditional sense, and more an exploration of the human psyche's darkest corners. The album opens with a wall of lo-fi distortion, atmospheric drones, and dissonant guitar riffs that are intentionally buried beneath layers of static. Tracks like Arcane and Misanthropic Projection and Prisoner of Mirrors sound almost as though they're coming from another realm, with Malefic's voice hidden in the depths, barely audible as they drift through the thick oppressive mix. This isn't music that reaches out to you, it's music that pulls you in, inviting you into a world that feels abandoned and desolate, as if each track were another step deeper into a psychological void. At its core, Subliminal Genocide reflects themes of nihilism, misanthropy, and the crushing weight of existence. There's no redemption here, no moments of clarity, only relentless droning reminder of life's darker realities. The lyrics, while obscured beneath the dense instrumentation, evoke feelings of emptiness and emotional decay, echoing Malefic's worldview that often questions the very purpose of human existence. The album is a journey into isolation, capturing a profound sense of detachment from humanity and the world itself. The production of Subliminal Genocide is a defining element, amplifying the album's atmosphere of despair. With intentionally lo-fi recording techniques, Malefic crafted a sound that feels raw, almost primal, as if each note and whisper is struggling to break free from a thick layer of fog. The distortion and reverb are so heavy that they create a sense of distance, as though the music itself is fading into an unreachable void. This choice enhances the album's claustrophobic nature, making it feel like you're trapped within the layers of sound, unable to find a way out. Since its release, Subliminal Genocide has become a touchstone in the depressive black metal subgenre, celebrated by fans who find solace in its unapologetic bleakness. It's an album that doesn't offer an escape or relief. Instead, it invites the listener to sit with their despair, to confront feelings of isolation and detachment. Xasthur's influence on the genre is unmistakable, inspiring other artists to explore these unfiltered emotions with the same raw intensity and minimalism. In the end, Subliminal Genocide isn't just an album, it's an experience of profound isolation, a reflection of the darkest parts of the human soul. For those willing to confront its depths, it offers a glimpse into a world stripped of comfort and warmth, leaving only the stark reality of existence. It's a challenging listen, but for those who resonate with its darkness, Subliminal Genocide is a hauntingly powerful journey into solitude and self-reflection. Our next descent into Tier 4 Part 2 brings us to Cat System Corp's 2016 album, News at 11, an entry into the vaporwave genre that evokes a strange, haunting nostalgia. News at 11 is more than just an album. It's a melancholic time capsule that reflects on tragedy, loss, and the unsettling calm that followed a moment frozen in history. Using Vaporwave's signature slowed-down samples and ambient sounds, News at 11 captures an eerie, dreamlike atmosphere that feels like tuning into a distant memory. The album opens with soft looping melodies layered over samples from news broadcasts, evoking the mundane calm of morning TV or weather reports. But beneath this familiar backdrop, there's a deep melancholy, a feeling that something is not quite right. Cat System Core, also known as Jort Elzinga, layers gentle synths and muted drums that seem to drift in and out, as though you're listening to a memory that's slowly fading. The result is hauntingly beautiful, and as you progress through tracks like 11 p.m. and Goodbye, you feel pulled into a suspended reality, as if time itself has slowed to a crawl. News at 11 is often associated with the emotional fallout of 9/11, though it never explicitly references it. The music, however, carries an intense sense of absence and grief, as if it's reflecting the calm that came right before the storm and the eerie silence that followed. Each track feels like a fragment of life that was abruptly interrupted, leaving a void that can never quite be filled. It's nostalgia, but not in the comforting sense. It's nostalgia that aches, one that reminds us of loss and the fragility of normalcy. This album seems to ask the listener to reflect on what was lost and how memories become ghostly echoes over time. The production on News at 11 leans into Vaporwave's lo-fi analog feel, using degraded samples and tape hiss that enhance the album's themes of fading memories. The sound is purposefully hazy and distant, adding to the effect of listening in on something long past. This approach captures the feeling of flipping through old TV channels, seeing familiar images but feeling like you're disconnected from them, as if looking at a world that no longer exists. The lo-fi sound quality and sampling choices transform the music into something ghostly, something that drifts in and out of focus. Since its release, News at 11 has become a standout work in the vaporwave genre, resonating deeply with listeners who find themselves haunted by its quiet reflection on memory and tragedy. For fans of vaporwave, this album has become a touchstone, celebrated for its ability to blend nostalgia with a profound sense of loss. It represents the genre's potential to offer more than just aesthetic. It offers emotional depth, using samples to tell a story of an era gone by. In the end, News at 11 is not just an album, it's an exploration of the eerie beauty of memory and the lingering echoes of what we've lost. For those willing to immerse themselves, it offers a delicate, haunting journey, a reminder of the events and feelings that shape us, yet fade with time. It's a meditation on fragility and impermanence, asking us to consider the weight of memories that quietly slip away. Our journey through Tier 4 Part 2 brings us to the haunting collaboration between Robert Rich and B. Lustmord, Stalker, released in 1995. This album isn't just a collection of ambient tracks, it's an immersive soundscape that transports listeners into a shadowy realm of uncertainty and introspection. Inspired by Andrei Tarkovsky's 1979 film Stalker, the album delves into themes of isolation, the unknown, and the existential questions that arise when one confronts the depths of uncharted territory. From the very first moments of Elemental Trigger, you're enveloped in a world of deep drones and subtle textures that feel both vast and claustrophobic. The soundscape is meticulously crafted, layering low-frequency rumbles with distant echoing tones that evoke images of abandoned industrial landscapes or the eerie stillness of subterranean caverns. There's a tangible sense of space in the music, a vast, empty expanse that seems to stretch infinitely, yet presses in on you with an almost palpable weight. The album doesn't rely on melody or rhythm in the traditional sense. Instead, it weaves a tapestry of sound that encourages the listener to lose themselves in the atmosphere. Tracks like Omnipresent Boundary and Hidden Refuge create a sonic environment where time feels suspended. The sounds are both organic and synthetic, blurring the lines between the natural world and something otherworldly. It's as if you're exploring a place where the familiar laws of nature no longer apply, a place that is as mesmerizing as it is unsettling. Stalker taps into themes of existential dread and the human desire to seek meaning in the unknown. The music reflects a journey into the zone as depicted in Tarkovsky's film, a mysterious, forbidden area that defies logic and offers both danger and enlightenment to those who dare enter. The album mirrors this journey, guiding listeners through soundscapes that challenge perceptions and evoke a sense of awe and trepidation. It's a reflection on the human condition, our curiosity, and the inherent fear of what lies beyond our understanding. The collaboration between Robert Rich and B. Lustmord is a fusion of their distinct approaches to ambient music. Robert Rich brings his expertise in creating organic, textured soundscapes, while B. Lustmord contributes his mastery of dark ambient and atmospheric depth. Together, they crafted an album that feels cohesive and immersive, each artist's influence enhancing the others. The production quality is exceptional, with attention to detail that allows each subtle sound to contribute to the overall atmosphere. Since its release, Stalker has been hailed as a landmark in the dark ambient genre. Its influence can be seen in the works of many artists who seek to explore the boundaries of sound and atmosphere. The album invites listeners not to just hear the music, but to experience it, to let it wash over them and provoke introspection. It's a journey that requires patience and openness, rewarding those who immerse themselves fully with a profound and unsettling experience. In the end, Stalker is more than just an album. It's an exploration of the unknown, a sonic voyage into spaces that are rarely charted in music. It challenges the listener to confront their own perceptions of reality and to embrace the mysteries that lie beneath the surface. For those willing to venture into its depths, Stalker offers a haunting and unforgettable experience that lingers long after the final notes fade away. Our final descent into Tier 4 Part 2 brings us face to face with one of the most unsettling and chaotic entries in black metal history, Mayhem's 2007 album, Ordo ad Chao. Known for their legendary controversial past and relentless embrace of darkness, Mayhem takes black metal to its rawest and most primal form with Ordo ad Chao. The title itself translates to Order to Chaos, serves as a fitting description of the experience that awaits. This album is a sonic descent, one that feels like it's teetering on the edge of collapse, embodying themes of nihilism, disorder, and existential dread. The album opens with a wise birth giver, and right from the start, you're pulled into an unforgiving soundscape of dense lo-fi production. It's muddy, abrasive, and at times feels almost impenetrable, a deliberate choice that makes the music feel as though it's clawing its way through darkness. Attila Sehar's vocal range, from guttural growls to haunting whispers and tortured screams, adding an otherworldly, unsettling presence that lingers throughout each track. His voice is both a narrator and a spectator, guiding listeners through a realm where chaos and order coexists easily. Ordo ad Chaos taps into themes of existential dread, misanthropy, and the collapse of traditional structures. The lyrics, often obscured by the dense instrumentation, touch on ideas of cosmic insignificance and humanity's place in a chaotic universe. Tracks like Illuminate, Eliminate, and Great Work of Ages are drenched in atmosphere, each riff and blast beat amplifying a sense of hopelessness. This isn't music designed to comfort or even entertain. It's meant to provoke, to challenge, and to comfort listeners with a vision of reality that is harsh and unyielding. The production quality of Ordo ad Chao is an integral part of its effect. Recorded with a lo-fi, almost oppressive mix, the sound feels thick and heavy, as though each instrument is struggling to break free from a murky void. The bass is deep and reverberating, the drums are chaotic yet precise, and the guitar riffs feel like distant echoes of something ancient and destructive. This choice to embrace such raw, abrasive production gives the album a sense of immediacy, creating an atmosphere that's both claustrophobic and immense. It's as if Mayhem is forcing the listener to confront the abyss directly, without any barriers. Mayhem's reputation as pioneers and provocateurs in the black metal genre adds another layer to Ordo ad Chao. Known for their notorious history and associations with the darkest elements of the black metal scene, Mayhem approached this album with a sense of purpose, using their brutal aesthetic to push boundaries. The album's reception was mixed, with some listeners celebrating its commitment to raw intensity, while others found it almost too challenging to absorb. Yet, this reaction only cements its status as a divisive, powerful work that refuses to compromise. Since its release, Ordo ad Chao has been recognized as a unique entry in Mayhem's discography and a significant work in the black metal genre. It stands as a reminder of black metal's ability to explore the darker aspects of human experience and the chaos lurking beneath the surface of reality. The album's unyielding atmosphere and confrontational sound have influenced a new genre of artists who seek to capture the raw, unfiltered existence of extreme music. In the end, Ordo ad Chao is more than just an album. It's an immersion into the void, a journey through darkness that refuses to provide easy answers. For those willing to embrace its chaos, it offers an experience that is as intense as it is unforgettable. Ordo ad Chao invites listeners to confront the abyss, to find meaning, or the absence of it, within the chaos. And in doing so, it remains one of the most haunting and powerful works in black metal history. And that brings us to the end of Tier 4. We've explored the outer reaches of unsettling music, from abrasive noise and haunting atmospheres to raw existential soundscapes. Each album in this tier has taken us further into the depths, challenging us to confront discomfort, despair, and the fragile boundaries of what music can convey. But as we prepare to descend into Tier 5, know that we're only scratching the surface of this iceberg. What waits ahead next pushes us even deeper into the dark and the forbidden. We're entering realms of unfiltered chaos, brutal honesty, and sonic landscapes that feel like they've come from another dimension entirely. If Tier 4 hints at darkness, Tier 5 immerses us in it. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated as we continue this descent. And if you'd like to follow the journey from the beginning, you can find the full playlist linked in the description below. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and as always, stay squishy.